mean, breakfast, bomb. I love eating breakfast. But I don't think you'd eat breakfast while you're on the toilet. You know what I mean? Like, you got to do it in the right context, right? Well, the same is true for sex. There's nothing wrong with sex. But sex outside of the commitment and the security and the vows and the covenant that happens before God in marriage is a recipe for disaster, unfortunately, because sex is the most vulnerable time between you and another person. I mean, a college campus is the perfect context for this. You see it all the time. People are walking around the streets. Everyone is, dressed very nicely, however they're supposed to look. They're projecting this image of who they want to be, pretending. We all wear our masks. But in sex, all those come off. It's complete vulnerability in front of that person. And only in the security and in the safety of a covenant before God and with that person can that be preserved and maintained. It's a sacred union, just like Ann was saying, where two become one. I'm going to keep it real with all of you tonight, and I'm going to share with you just a little testimony. I was engaged to this one girl about, it's been a long time now. It was a long, long time. And I was a Christian at the time, and she was a Christian too. And we were pretty much living together, and I was justifying in my mind and in my heart because, I thought I knew the Bible, I thought I was godly, and I looked at this girl and I was like, oh yeah, she's already my wife. I mean, we haven't actually gotten married yet, but I'm treating her like my wife. It's okay if we have sex. But we didn't have the security of what comes from being in a covenant before God. We didn't have that mutual understanding between each other that no matter what, whenever times get hard, if you're broke, if you're sick, if you're not feeling good, that you're still committed to that person in a sacrificial, loving relationship, no matter what. We didn't have that. I was convincing myself that we did, but we didn't have that. Well, sooner or later, things get difficult. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when you're having sex, don't be surprised if someone gets pregnant. And she got pregnant, and she wanted to have an abortion. And she came to me and said, I want to have an abortion. And I looked at her and I was like, we cannot do that. I mean, this is a child. This is a life. And she started crying and was in tears and was like, this is my body. And if you love me, you're going to support me. And here I am, a progressive guy. I want to support the right of a woman. And I want to be a Christian, though, all at the same time. And I was trying to battle with this in my heart, and I didn't know what to do. And finally I said, okay, I support you. And about a week later, I found myself in the bathroom of a Motel 6 after leaving the doctor who gave her a pill to induce abortion. And she was curled up in a fetal position in a bathroom floor, screaming in pain and agony. And that night, or that day, our child died. And today, my child would be 9 years old. The Bible says, you reap what you sow. And I was sowing destruction into my relationship with her. And it's not a surprise that we reaped destruction also. Sex is beautiful, and it's ordained by God. But it needs to be done in the right context. And we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. So the other question that was a part of it was like, if she's the one or he's the one, why wait? Well, if you love that person, people say, oh, we have sex because we love each other. If you love that person, do you love that person enough to wait? Because that's real love, because you're protecting that person. And unfortunately, I didn't love her enough. And time revealed that. So.
Wow. Thank you, Marcos, for sharing that. It's not easy to share these stories so vulnerably, right? It takes courage, so we really thank you for that. I'm going to say just one follow-up word to that. I think that some of you in this room may have experienced things like that. I know I have. And I think the other question is, well, what if I'm not a virgin anymore? So, all right, fine, you're saying this is God's plan, I'm learning about it for the first time, or maybe I'm really understanding it, or maybe I'm even ready to somewhat accept that, but what happens if I'm not a virgin? Well, for me, I think that if you are not a Christian, the thought of not being a virgin isn't a spiritual one, right? Because that's maybe not necessarily how you view it. But really we believe that God says that nothing can separate us from his love. Okay,
Right.
so that's the first thing, like with shame and condemnation. I grew up with a lot of shame and condemnation as a survivor of sexual abuse as a child, teenager, and in adulthood. So for me, these conversations even about what God's plan for sex, like, felt super painful. Because I was like, you don't even know what I've been through. How can you stand up here and tell me it has to be in the context of marriage? This is, and even what Marcos was talking about, this is my body. How can you tell me what I need to do or what that looks like? But what I started to realize is that when I gave my sexuality, including the brokenness, to God, like really gave it all to him, man, he brought so much healing. The places that I felt so unworthy, that I thought I could never feel worthy or loved again in, God like did this crazy switch. So you think maybe, well, I've already lost my virginity. What's the point of now not having sex with this person because I love this person, or anybody? Or why should I wait for that one person? I've already done it. That does not mean that that's beyond God's restoration. And restoration is like not only repairing it, it's like giving you a whole new thing. And for me, when I actually met my husband, I really did get to give myself away to him for the first time. Because I wasn't a whole person in these other relationships. I was broken. I was a lot of pieces. And when, like Marcos was saying too, it's so vulnerable, it's so intimate, you let yourself really be known. I hadn't ever experienced sex at all in a context where it was empowering, it was mutual, it was loving, it was respectful, it wasn't painful, it wasn't abusive. Like, I had not really understood any of that. But then in the context of when I really did,